Hey everyone, it's Life and Vibe, otherwise known as Ray. And you have to imagine my sadness today when I woke up and found that Mike Dunn from Ouachita Mountain Living, Dogman Vlogs, Mike Dunn podcast, had decided to put to private the video where he says that he did not want someone else telling his story. And one person he certainly did not want telling his story was me, Ray, otherwise known as Life and Vibe, or Life and Vibe, otherwise known as Ray. But before we get into anything about today's story, because there are some interesting things I want to make sure I share and highlight in case you missed it in my other longer live stream video, is one, everything I do is within fair use. And even though this is information educational purposes, everything that I'm going to show is verified public records. These are not anything that anybody could not get hold of. I'm just somebody who loves to advocate for folk and make sure that people on YouTube know exactly who these creators are. A lot of people sell really good narratives and great stories, and maybe their histories don't need to have embellishments. Maybe Mike's doesn't need to have an embellishment, but here we are. So anyway, as you can see on this particular channel, I'll make me a little bit smaller. The video went private, and I was very disappointed. I'm very sad, but fortunately for us, I did save one. I actually saved the whole video, but I did want to share this part, and then we're going to get into Mike's military record.
I am a veteran. I can assure you, I am a veteran. This is my military records. I'm not going to show you the files, but this is just part of it, okay? Every veteran, everybody that's been in the service has a 201 file. This is my 201 file. Yes, I have my own 201 file. I had a great unit administrator and copied everything out of my, you're not supposed to have these. You are not supposed to have these. But she made copies because my records were in such a mess. She says, I ain't never, ever going through your records again. And she made me copies and said, keep them in a safe place. I usually keep this at the courthouse, but I have it now. And it's just, you know, like here's a set of orders welcoming me to Drill Sergeant Academy in 1986, 87. Yep, right there. I don't know if you can see it. I'm not going to show you. This probably got my damn social security number on it. Military puts your social on everything. But these are my orders for that. I'm a veteran. I am not going to sit here and but I am a veteran.
And that's potentially true. There's a certain thing when people are in Army reserves that if they serve a certain amount of time in combat or they have a certain mission, they could actually have enough adequate days active that they do become a veteran. And there are certain benefits they may be eligible for, like housing stipends or mortgage stuff, or there could be certain things. But I did write to the or I did actually make sure to get in touch with the National Personnel Records regarding Michael William Dunn. And I'm going to show the difference between the letter I got from Raymond Krebs with verified service in the Marines and the letter that I have received here regarding Mr. Dunn, because it's going to highlight the difference between their military services, because I didn't get all the extra paperwork that I actually received for Mr. Dunn's files. Now, when I did submit the paperwork, I've put his full name in with his suffix in it, suffix, which is junior. Get it right? And then date of birth, branch of military, which was Army. That obviously that he was somebody who had been, a full-time Army person, not in the reserves. That he obviously had, the place where I felt that his service came from. And this is the letter that I received back from them. And it states, thank you for contacting the National Personnel Records Center. And this was dated July 31st, 2026. So I just received this communication. Under the provisions of the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, the Department of Defense has determined that certain items of information may be released to the general public without a warranted invasion of the individual's privacy. A search of the electronic records system maintained by the Military Service Department has identified an incomplete United States Army Reserves record. We are enclosing in a Form 13164, information releasable under the Freedom of Information Act, containing the available items of information. However, because the record is incomplete, we are not able to provide everything releasable under FOIA. If the limited information we are able to provide is not sufficient for your needs, we suggest you contact the office shown below for further assistance. And so, obviously, they give me the address of the Army, their human resources command, all the different letters I would need to get to the right attention, and so forth. And then they give me some extra information about whether or not if the person was in the National Guard. And then the second page just finished out with a very important part of who the archivist was when they obtained the record. So that is the actual technician, the human person, not the AI bot, not something, an actual human being from the National Personnel Records Center who took the time to actually go through these records and obtain this for me. So thank you very much, Janet Kincaid. That was the person who worked on this particular record. So thank you so much for that. Now, I wanted to compare this to the record of Raymond Krebs, who I'm going to add to the stage here. Again, you can see it's addressed to me. It was just a couple of days ahead of time in 2026. Now, I do also want to say that both Raymond and our friend Mike were in the military, I want to say, around about the same time because of the fact that obviously Mr. Krebs entered into the military, I believe it was in 84, and Mr. Dunn went in 83. So the records would be very similar. So what it says to here is dear recipient again, and it says Krebs, Raymond George, and my case number. And again, I use the same type of identifying details, but except this time I put Marines as the branch of service, obviously his date of birth for Mr. Krebs, where I knew he was potentially located out of. The original time I searched, I did not have a place that I thought he was connected to strongly. And even though I knew he was in Kentucky, that would not have necessarily correlated with his military time. And lo and behold, I tried Michigan when I had done some extra research around his Wisconsin case, and it came back with this. And it says, thank you for contacting the National Personnel Records Center. The military service information provided in this reply has been extracted from records on file at the center and is released to you under the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, as amended in 1974. Raymond George Krebs served in the United States Marine Corps from April 25, 1984 to June 14th, 1986, just over 2 years. And they obviously say some information. And then I get the names of the archives technician, Veronica Cunningham. Same thing here. So one page, very clear. This person served in the military, did not get anything about the duty stations. I do know that Raymond started out in San Diego. But as you can see, the letter comparatively for Mr. Krebs compared to the letter that I have received for Mr. Dunn is very different. Mr. Dunn clearly states that they found his history under the U.S. Army Reserves. So let's take a look at that. So this is the history that I did also receive for Mr. Dunn from this the archivist there, the archive technician, sorry, that was taking care of this particular case for me. And so what they were able to let me know is that he served in the branch of service was United States Army Reserves. And I'm going to show you where he entered on August the 5th, 1983, left October 12th, 1992. The active, which shows here September 1983 to May 2nd, 1984, I can help cover and explain about the training and the different codes because I do have these assignment pages. He was discharged. He was discharged as private first class, which is an E3. And then we've got some assignments and geographical locations. They've attached that. He did finish phase 2 drill sergeant school, not an academy. That's, I think, the paperwork that he was holding. That's a 2-week training. He did get some ribbons that come along with the training academies, Army service ribbons, sharpshooter badge with grenade bar, expert badge with auto rifle, marksman badge with rifle bar. He came in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and I'll show you where kind of where that kind of unit was for the reserves. And then he separated out of North Little Rock, Arkansas. And so that is what they've been able to release to me under his Freedom of Information Act. And I do find it interesting that since I have released this information, Mr. Dunn has taken his video down where he claims to have been a veteran. Okay, let's finish this piece of information out because I know people don't like super long videos. Let me go back to the first page. Actually, the second page is probably the best place to start because these are his stations that he started at. So these are a little bit tough to see. But it's important to sort of see the orders here. Now, these are actually the assignments that Mr. Dunn was given. And so it actually, all of these are the dates. It's kind of the year first and the month and then the day. And then obviously there's a lot of different letters here. And I'm going to kind of break this down and explain what all of this can translate into. So as you know, on August the 5th, 1983, Mike Dunn was enlisted into the reserves. And the unit that he first was assigned to for the reserves was the 486th Civil Affairs Company. And that was in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. So that would have been Mike's initial entry point and contract signing into the U.S. Army Reserves. And this is for the records. They have not found any records that he has been active in the Army. If he wants to show FOIA records that come from personnel records, just like I've been able to obtain that show different information, I would love for him to share those. On September the 20th, 1983, and these are all these different codes that are very clearly shown, these IDTs. These are all the training codes that are used. So anybody who's been in the military will understand all of these variety of codes. And so we'll break it down. So what they call active duty is a little bit different from when you are reserve active duty. So it's inactive duty training is how they classify that. And he went to the U.S. Army Reception Station. That's the U.S.A. RECSTA at Fort Leonard, Montana. I think that's Montana. Is that Montana, Mo? Or is that Montana? I hope that's Montana. And he went there. The reason being was for entry processing. He would have been issued his uniforms. He would have had a medical screening. He would have been checked for those flat feet and hammer toes. And he would have had his initial intake. And then on September the 26th, 1983, and this is all what you can see here. It's all written in code, but I'm breaking down this code for you. I wish I could highlight it and make it a little bit larger for you to see. But hopefully you can take a peek, see, and understand this information. So he, on the 26th of September 1983, he still remained what was known as active duty, but that's in it's like inactive duty training is what they IADT, I think is the acronym they use. And it was at the Company A, 3rd Battalion, 3rd Basic Training Brigade at Fort Leonard Wood, Montana. I think that's MO is Montana. Correct me if I'm wrong. Completion of core, and this is where he would his completion of his core, mandatory 8-week basic combat training, BCT curriculum. Then on November the 5th, 25th, 1983, he had again the active duty, the IADT, and that was en route transit status. And he went in transit travel from basic training to job specialty school. And on November the 26th, 1983, again, they classified this as active duty, even though it is under the reserves. IADT is how they call it. Is he went to Company D, and that was the 2nd Battalion Troop Brigade at Fort Benjamin, Harrison, Indiana. And he would have had attendance at Advanced Individual Training, AIT, to learn job-specific skills. And at this point, May 2nd, 1984, he would have had an end of his active component, and he separated north of Little Rock, Arkansas, and he would have completed the continuous 7.5-month initial active duty for training. Oh, so that's what it stands for, IADT. Thank you. Initial active duty for training pipeline. So that's what that acronym is. Initial active duty for training. And then August the 6th, he would have had a reserve status, reserve drill status, and he went to the Battery D 1st Battalion. That was the 89th Regiment. That was the 402nd Brigade in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And potentially he could have served as domestic instructional support staff within an Army Reserve training. That was the TNG and Field Artillery Brigade there. And then on April the 28th, 1982, he still continued in his reserve drill status. He went Detachment 1 at the 827th Supply Company. That's a repair parts over in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And there he could have transferred to local units to manage mechanical supply chains, warehouse, distribution, logistics, and so forth. But remember, it's not full time. This is just when he went to do his drills. And then on October the 21st, 1982, let me get to the second page. So this is what all of these different codes here broken down actually mean. And if we come to this first page, this is where I am now. It's kind of backwards, but that actually would be that reserve drill status. He would have had a Detachment 1 to the 827th Supply Company, as I said. And then October the 21st, 1992 would have been his final discharge per the paperwork. That would have been a headquarters separation. We saw at Little Rock, Arkansas. And he would have been formally discharged from the U.S. Army Reserves after 9 years of service, and after obviously having had his time served and finishing out as a private E3 first class private is what he was also saying. And so that's what all these different codes were meaning. En route to Fort Benjamin, you can see all these different stations here, all these different ones here, all these different battery divisions over in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You can see 89, the sometime in October 16th, 1989. I'm not sure. It's not clear where that was. It's a little bit unclear. Let me go back to that page, the second page. It's a little bit unclear. We see sort of a name, but no station here. So those were all the breakdown of all of this particular information in regards to all of Mike's different duty stations that we can tell that he had from the course of 1983 when he enlisted in up to 1989. And then there's kind of a period, I guess, between 89 and then up to 92. So what happened in this period, I'm not sure, but where his station was. But these were all to do with his reserve service, He obviously entered when he was 17 years old. And so he would not have been able to have had any active duty prior to that. And so his reserve duty ended in 92. Any enlistment that he had potentially in that time, they don't necessarily indicate this on this particular information, but you can see where he did have a gap between 89 to 92, but he was out by 1992. All right, guys, I do appreciate you taking the time to help me cover this story and get it made aware, because it's interesting that his video has now been taken down. You are all able to get records like this from anywhere. If you want to leave some type of is there a paper and pen or a pen? I don't know, something investigative. I don't know, maybe a magnifying glass. There we go. Leave me a magnifying glass in the comment section, guys. And if you did happen to like this type of content, make sure that you give me one of these, a like, maybe a subscribe. I really do appreciate that. We are growing. Give a hype. And like I said, leave a magnifying glass if you got this far. Thanks, guys. See you on the next one. Bye.